Hey everybody, so we're back. I watched the last video and then I was like kind of second guessing it. It could have been, I kind of wish I don't sound so Canadian in it, and by Canadian I mean blase, about the earthquake, but anyway, um, when I'm detailing some of the tragic things that happened, I didn't mean to do that like bougie voice. Anyway, um, this is actually part of the Growing Up in the Himalayas series, which I was thinking about it earlier because I keep thinking I have nothing to talk about, and then I remember something else. Because it's like I have the feeling that talking about growing up in the Himalayas is only of interest to me because it's sort of like this very individual language. But I'll just blather at the screen and we'll see what happens, alright? You with me? Okay, so when I was, I guess, about 8 years old in India, there are these. There's a specific type of journey called a yatra, which is like a sort of a pilgrimage, or it's like a really long journey, like an odyssey. I think an odyssey is kind of closest approximation to the word yatra. And so our group used to do yatras occasionally. And when we arrived in India, me and my parents, my family, we had just missed two big ones that the ashram had done. They had gone to um, our guru's home village, and then there was a trip to Trilokinath, which is this special valley in in the Himalayas, basically, um, which is sacred to Lord Shiva. And I mean, I don't know, like at the age of 7, I had no fear to speak of. I had a few, but mostly it was like anything exciting that was going on, I wanted to do it, and I was not scared of danger. So, my mother, a little different. So, anyway, I was just like burning with envy that, everyone else who I knew had been to these amazing places. And, and then, like I guess a year after we arrived there was a trip planned to Rishikesh, which is it's a place at the Ganges on the Ganga River. So basically, there was going to be a group of chartered buses that were going to go south from the Himalayas and to these holy spots, which are kind of more in north central India. And and so everybody piled into these buses, and me and my parents as well. And and the trips were quite grueling because it was sort of like, we didn't have. You were not going to have paramedics on staff if somebody had anything like a peanut allergy, or I mean, everybody basically contracted some kind of illness on these buses, and then on top of it, they were like tripping. I don't know if they were like taking stuff, but necessarily, but they were definitely spaced out of their minds on lack of sleep, and then sick with some kind of stomach bug, usually from the roadside food. Um, and so this was sort of like contributing factor to compound their experience of India in the early 80s. So it would have been like 84 or 85, um, which would have been already a little bit mind-blowing, some of these places. So now, one of the places we went to was Vrindavan, which is like the birthplace of Lord Krishna, who's one of the Hindu gods, and it was uh, supposed to be quite special. Our ashram was probably a little bit more dedicated to Krishna than any other god, and so it was kind of a special pilgrimage. And then we also visited Kurukshetra, which was the site where the battle was fought in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the biggest, one of the most important scriptures in Hinduism. And so these were kind of important sites to see, and I did get to see those. And my mother did experience some kind of like past life type thing, which was unusual for her. India was not her trigger for that kind of stuff usually. She had that more in places like Upper Volta in Africa and Kenya. And it was my dad who really felt the magic of India. And me, I also felt the magic of India. Whereas my mother was mostly like, it was all kind of, she was tolerating her for the spiritual benefits of what we were doing. And, but in Vrindavan, she did feel the thing. And I did not. I did not like Vrindavan. I found it dusty and kind of unremarkable. But we went to this place called Pinjore Gardens, which is, I think it's in the Punjab, and it's this special sort of, I don't know, private garden thing. Well, actually, it might be public, but anyway, I started having some kind of like past life regression thing in these gardens, and it's these terraced gardens. So you go into a garden, and it's like a maze, and then you would pass through an archway or a door at the end of the garden, and then you would go down some stairs, and then there would be another garden, which was exactly like the first one, but with one detail changed. It was sort of the same layout, and there was one that had like bird cages everywhere, and then it was like this feeling of infinity, because then you would go through another door, and then it would be another level or another garden, and it felt like it went on forever. But my mother was freaking out because I was getting lost in this maze, and she had already had trouble with me wandering off. Every time the buses stopped, I would like start meandering, and I had no fear. I was just like, it was all a delightful exploration, and I felt perfectly safe and surrounded. I mean, I was embraced by 150 people who were like my own family. But my mother was very concerned as a mother that I was not on the planet, so to speak. So, so she called me back to the buses, and then they were moving, and I was, we almost missed them. And then I don't think they would have left without one of the passengers, though, because these were charter buses. There were lists of everyone. We all knew each other. Anyway. And my father was also having some kind of experience, and not sort of around that much. Like, he was just having the divine experience of the motion and being in the group and all of these spiritual sites and everything, and not really concerned about being a father, I guess. And my mother was one pointed. She was completely focused on health and safety. And so she made the decision to derail us from this yatra, and we went back to the valley where the ashram is situated. So, and I was really mad at my mother. I didn't forgive her for a long time, because she was like, well, you can do it when you're older. And I knew then that by the time I was older, I would not have that open mind to experience these things in that sort of like immediate way that you can experience as a child. And but like, if I might have done the same as her if I'd been a mother. Anyway, so after the guru passed away, which was like 2017, I made the decision to leave, um, and then I was I just like randomly took this train out of the Himalayas, and then I ended up in this small town in Haryana, and then um, they told me, "Oh, you can take like a 10 rupee." I actually thought like I made a huge mistake and I'd blown up my life, and I didn't really, because nothing was familiar. I knew when the guru passed what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do something different, but um, I didn't have any plan. And then suddenly I realized I'd made this decision, and I was kind of like shocked by myself. So, and I didn't know if the universe was with me. Did I do something wrong? Um, and then I found this. Somebody told me, yeah, you can take 10 rupees and you can go on this rickshaw ride to the Pinjore Gardens. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're near the Pinjore Gardens. That's where I had my like past life experience. So I realized like that some coincidences were kind of favorable, and so I went, and and one of my friends from the ashram had told me that when our guru had visited Pinjore Gardens, he gave a big explanation for it, and how the each garden, or like maze in the garden, represents a level of the mind when you're meditating, that is a stage that your mind goes through when you're meditating, and then you go deeper. So that's why the gardens are terraced, and you go down, and then you go through a door, and you go through a door, and you go through a door. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And when I was a little kid and I had been there, I only got to like the third door. There are 10 doors, um, and so I was quite curious to see what the 10th door was, because my friend had told me that according to my guru's description, the 10th door opens on the sky, or actually the 10th door is the sky, and when you open it, you fall through the sky. You're like no longer an individual ego. And so I was quite curious to see this, and so I went down and down and down through all the gates. I think I was videoing, and and then I opened the 10th door, and it was a brick wall. They had walled it up. I don't know if that was deliberately allegorical, um, or if it was just kind of like some sort of quick fix for something. They didn't want to let in animals into the garden or something. I don't know, because there are a lot of jackals, I think, in the area. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I wanted to tell that story, but I can't quite describe what I was feeling. Yeah, it didn't feel the same. It's kind of like, it's like Abraham Hicks says. You can only have your first ice cream once, and that was true of that as well. When I was walking through the gardens as an 8-year-old, I felt like I was on another planet or in some kind of fairy kingdom. Whereas, doing it as an adult, it felt like, okay, this is nice and it's sentimental and sort of sweet, um, revisiting, but interesting, when you do the investigation and then see the brick wall. Anyway, that was one experience of growing up in the Himalayas. I do forgive my mom. Oh my gosh. It must have been so terrifying being a mother in those days. Like, and I mean, already, she must have been getting so much flack from her relatives to bring me as a small child to India, to the Himalayas, to an ashram, which, in those days, as well as now, did not have good reputation. And my father also. I mean, my father, his family was more kind of conservative minded, um, but he was also more rebellious. Whereas my mother her family was a little more open minded, but she cared a lot about what they thought. Anyway, I don't know, like, how that contributed to my experience of meditation, which is really the point of these Himalayan stories. But I like the allegory of the levels of transcendence, and I thought that it fit the design of the gardens actually. But what was interesting was that when the birds were gone, they had, I mean, caged birds. Like, is it really such a great thing anyway? But seeing them as a kid, I was quite enchanted to see the golden pheasant. All right, that's all I have to say. I don't know if this video is any good, but it's a little bit more cheerful than the earthquake video. So there is that. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.